Erik ten Hag attended the final game of last season and he grimaced as Manchester United were defeated 1-0 by Crystal Palace. Alex Telles, Harry Maguire, Fred, Scott McTominay, Anthony Elanga, Hannibal Mejbri and Edinson Cavani all started that afternoon at Selhurst Park, and it's unsurprising they haven't featured in the most picked starting team of this campaign. Telles and Hannibal were sent on loan to Sevilla and Birmingham respectively. Cavani departed on a free transfer and the remaining four players, Maguire, Fred, McTominay and Elanga, have become peripheral squad figures by design. Elanga, who is likely to leave on loan this summer, last scored in February 2022 and he's below the level required. Maguire has made 7 league starts, whilst Fred and McTominay have both been given just a few more starts each. United endured their worst season for decades last year and the final day at Selhurst Park couldn't come soon enough. The away support in Croydon were relieved to hear the final whistle and they travelled home pondering the future. Ten Hag was asked about that Crystal Palace game at his first press conference and said, "I've made an analysis, I observe, and I set conclusions, but I keep it now for myself. It's in the previous season now and we look forward to the next." Although he was coy with his answer, his actions have since suggested his conclusions of that game weren't good. The necessary changes have been made, new signings, discipline and a fresh approach, and positivity has returned. Could Ten Hag succeed at a club the size of United after managing go-ahead Eagles, Bayern Munich 2, Utrecht and Ajax? The answer is a resounding yes, and with one league game still to go, his first year can be considered a success. Ten Hag was the supporters' choice and he arrived with a large reputation, but he was inheriting a broken dressing room. The club desperately needed him to be more than an ordinary manager and he's been able to live up to that so far. The toxic atmosphere of last season is a distant memory and the change in fortunes since the final day of the campaign against Crystal Palace has been remarkable. The manager has won a trophy and defied expectations. There has been a year and 5 days since Ten Hag watched at Selhurst Park and the final day of the league season is approaching again. But the worst trophy drought for 40 years is over and Champions League football has been secured. Of course, the club spent north of £200 million in the summer window. But the extent of the mess last year should not be forgotten, and although there have been bumps in the road, Ten Hag is now the most powerful person at Old Trafford. Ten Hag said my plans are huge in his first press conference, and that was taken with a pinch of salt considering what he had to prove. But the foundations for a prosperous future have been installed and the first stage of the rebuild is complete. With Champions League football secured, United are more attractive to players this summer and it's hoped the team will be able to challenge for the Premier League title with a world-class striker and midfielder, and maybe even a new goalkeeper. That is the next challenge and it's a more daunting prospect than lifting the squad from the doldrums. Manchester City have set unprecedented standards with Pep Guardiola in the Premier League and Ten Hag is aiming to scale those heights. The long journey up the mountain has begun and the team will deservedly get a rapturous reception at Old Trafford after this weekend's game against Fulham, with third position in the table now appearing most likely for United. On the final day of last season, supporters dreaded the future, but this year, the new campaign can't come quickly enough. The first Manchester Derby in the FA Cup final will follow, and that trophy would certainly be the icing on the cake.
Now